Japan lies on an island chain off the Pacific coast of Asia, and is one of the most influential countries in the world today. If you look at a map of Japan, you'll notice that the country is dominated by 4 large islands. But there's more to Japan than just these 4 islands. A lot more. Let's explore. By its government's latest computerized count, Japan has 14,125 islands over 100 meters in circumference. The Japanese archipelago has been torn off the Asian mainland by tectonic forces over the past 23 million years or so, opening up the Sea of Japan. Japan lies on the Ring of Fire at the edge of the Pacific tectonic plate, giving it frequent earthquakes and many volcanic mountains. Japan's roughly 125 million inhabitants are mostly crowded into cities in valleys and coastal plains. We won't go too deep into Japanese history to avoid aping Bill Wirtz more than I already am, but basically Japan was isolated for a while, became an imperialist power in the mid to late 19th century, mostly lost its overseas empire after World War II, and nowadays is a wealthy democracy with a ceremonial emperor. One quick word on naming. Japan and its neighbors disagree on many geographic place names. For instance, South Korea calls the Sea of Japan the East Sea, and North Korea prefers the East Sea of Korea. We'll use the names used by the US or by Japan. Let's start with an overview of Japan's main islands. Hokkaido is Japan's northernmost major island, and Hokkaido Prefecture is the largest of Japan's 47 prefectures by area. Hokkaido was historically called Ezo and populated by the Ainu people, who faced conflict, discrimination, and forced assimilation from Japan's Yamato ethnic majority over the past several centuries, especially after Japan fully annexed Hokkaido in 1869. At least tens of thousands of Ainu remain in Hokkaido today. Honshu is Japan's largest island, home to over 80% of Japan's total population. It's the world's 7th largest and 2nd most populous island. Tokyo, Japan's capital, lies on Honshu's Kanto Plain. The Greater Tokyo area is the most populous metropolitan area in the world, with over 38 million residents. South across the Seto Inland Sea from Honshu lies Shikoku, meaning 4 provinces, Japan's largest island with no active volcanoes. By contrast, its neighbor Kyushu, meaning 9 provinces, is home to Mount Aso, Japan's most active volcano. Okinawa is much smaller than the 4 big islands, but some sources call it a major island as well. It's the largest of the Ryukyu Islands, southwest of Kyushu. The Ryukyu Kingdom, which governed the islands from 1429 to its annexation by Japan in 1879, connected Japan and China during Japan's isolationist period. The Ryukyuan people have their own language group in the Japonic family. They continue to face challenges from Japan's government, which doesn't recognize them as a distinct ethnic group, and from the numerous US military bases on the islands. South of Japan's main islands lie several island chains, together called the Nanpō Islands, which are administratively part of Tokyo metropolis. The closest of the Nanpō Islands to the rest of Japan are the Izu Islands, home to over 20,000 people, with their own traditional language or dialect called Hachijō. Used as penal colonies by Japan in the 12th century, the islands are traditionally known as the 7 Islands of Izu, a name that annoys residents of Aogashima and Shikinejima, the chain's 8th and 9th inhabited islands. The other inhabited island group is the Ogasawara or Bonin Islands, Bonin ironically meaning uninhabited. 2 of them are populated today, Chichijima with about 2,000 people, and Hahajima with about 400. Though prehistoric Micronesian artifacts have been found there, the first historical residents of the islands were a group of Americans, British, and Hawaiians, who settled in Chichijima, which they called Peel Island, in 1830. Japan took over the islands several decades later, annexing them in 1876. They fell under US military occupation after World War II, and were returned to Japan in 1968. The volcano islands lie farther south. Iō-tō, or Iō-jima, meaning Sulphur Island, the site of a famous World War II battle, and its neighbors Kita-Iō-tō, or North Iwo-jima, and Minami-Iō-tō, or South Iwo-jima, plus Nishinoshima farther north. Iwo-jima supports a Japanese military base, but the chain is otherwise uninhabited. The last of the Nanpō Islands are Minami-Torishima, Japan's easternmost territory, and Okinawa-Torishima, Japan's southernmost territory, which is famously controversial over whether it actually counts as an island, given that only a few outcroppings of coral surrounded by concrete are permanently above water. Japan's territorial reach once extended even further, thanks to its era of imperialism in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The first of Japan's major overseas territories was Taiwan, which Japan acquired in 1895 after defeating China's Qing dynasty in the First Sino-Japanese War, and putting down the short-lived Republic of Formosa. Japan ruled Taiwan as a colony for 50 years, up through the end of World War II, when Japan handed it over to the Republic of China, the pre-communist Chinese government which would flee to Taiwan after losing the Chinese Civil War, and which still controls Taiwan today, now as a democracy. You'll often see Taiwan in the news for its frozen conflict with the People's Republic of China, which controls the Chinese mainland. Filtering through the many international perspectives on a topic like Taiwan is often a challenge, which is why I've been using Ground News. They collect thousands of different articles reporting on the same stories in one place, like this story about a US-Taiwan trade agreement. We can see all the outlets covering the story, their political bias, and who owns each source. We can also compare media sources. Check out how all the outlets on the left and right mention pressure from China, while only some of the center ones do. I find it so helpful to see the news this way, getting all sides of a story and international perspectives that are otherwise hard to find. I especially like the map feature on the app, where you can hover around any country in the world to see what's being reported and where. Try it yourself for free at ground.news/signoreG, and, if you find it as useful as I do, subscribe through my link for unlimited access. Thank you to Ground News for sponsoring this video. Japan's largest colony was Korea, which Japan annexed in 1910 after ruling it indirectly for a few years. Korea is not an island, but it does contain islands like Jeju. North and South Korea still dispute the Liankou Rocks with Japan today. Similarly, Japan, Taiwan, and the PRC all claim what Japan calls the Senkaku Islands. Japan's other former territories on mainland Asia are the Guangdong Leased Territory and the South Manchuria Railway, both seized in the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905. Both territories are now part of China. The Russo-Japanese War was also fought on Sakhalin, which on the map looks quite related to Japan's main islands. Currently a part of Russia, Sakhalin has historically been influenced by Russia, China, and Japan, and was home to a group of Ainu people in its south, along with the Orok and Nivk ethnic groups. Back in the 1875 Treaty of St. Petersburg, Japan traded its rights in Sakhalin to Russia in exchange for the northern Kuril Islands. Japan would retake the southern portion of Sakhalin, Karafuto, in the Russo-Japanese War. In 1943, during World War II, Japan declared Karafuto to be a prefecture of the Japanese main islands. Karafuto was occupied by the Soviets in the war's closing days, and the island's non-Russians, including many Ainu, were deported to Japan. Japan no longer claims Sakhalin, but it does claim Iturup, Kunashir, Shikotan, and the Habamai Islands, which lie northeast of Hokkaido and are administered by Russia as part of the Kuril Islands. The 1951 Treaty of San Francisco, which established peace with Japan after World War II, ended Japan's rights to the Kuril Islands, but Japan claims the islands in dispute aren't part of the Kurils because Japan controlled them before the 1875 treaty. Japan also controlled the League of Nations South Seas Mandate, confiscated from Germany after World War I. Japan administered it as essentially Japanese territory until World War II, when it was handed over to U.S. administration as the UN Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. The islands today form the independent countries of Palau, Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands, all states in free association with the U.S., and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, now a U.S. territory. The northernmost of the Northern Mariana Islands, Farallón de Pájaros, lies only 336 miles from South Iwo-jima, meaning that technically the U.S. is the closest foreign country to Tokyo, just beating out South Korea. So from mountainous metropolises to maritime Micronesia, and from turn-of-the-century Taiwan to contemporary contested territories, Japan's many islands, past and present, have quite a history behind them. Learning about these forgotten islands can help us understand the people who live on them and the natural and human forces that have shaped their lives. Be sure to leave your feedback on this video in the comments, and subscribe if you want to see more like this. And as always, thanks for watching.